Hey everyone, today we need to talk about a set of receipts that just dropped in Washington and almost nobody is reading the fine print. So just imagine this with me. It's August 10th, 2025, San Juan, Puerto Rico. Inside the Coliseo, Bad Bunny is playing night after night of a sold-out 31-show residency. LeBron James has been here, Penelope Cruz has been here, and up in the premium seats, dancing in a suite, is a congresswoman from the Bronx. Now, rewind her story, she grows up in the Bronx. Before politics, she's pouring drinks and waiting tables to help her family. In June 2018, at 28 years old, she walks into a primary against a 10-term incumbent, one of the most powerful Democrats in the House, and beats him. 3 years later, she shows up at the Met Gala in a white gown with three words painted in red on the back: tax the rich. By 2025, she's touring the country with Bernie Sanders fighting oligarchy, and she shatters her own fundraising record: $9.5 million in a single quarter. Average donation, $21. Teachers, nurses, working people. Who am I talking about? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And then, in December 2025, the federal filings dropped, and the receipts told a very different story than the brand. But here's the thing, the most damaging line in this entire story isn't in those filings at all. It's buried on a single page of a government report almost nobody read, and it changes what every other number means. And if you're one of the millions of people who's ever chipped in $20 to a campaign, this is your money we're about to follow. Because 4 days after that concert footage hit Instagram, reporters started pulling the disbursement records. And what those records showed stopped them cold. Between late June and the end of September 2025, AOC's campaign spent nearly $50,000 in Puerto Rico. Not on ads, not on mailers, on lodging, dining, and venue costs. The filings list it line by line. July 28th, $680.52 to the Hotel Palacio Provincial in San Juan. August 29th, another $1,507.26 to the same hotel. And then September 29th, one single payment of $9,440.79. One hotel, one line item, almost 10 grand, add a $3,861.20 payment to the Hotel El Convento, and the campaign spent $15,489.77 on Puerto Rico, lodging alone in a single quarter. And the Palacio Provincial isn't a Holiday Inn. It markets itself as a first-class, adults-only property with grand colonial charm. Sit with that phrase for a second, colonial charm, because here's what makes this trip so radioactive. That same August, video from her own trip showed her standing at a housing development in San Juan, condemning gentrification. Wealthy outsiders pricing locals out of their own island. Days later, footage of her dancing in that suite at the Bad Bunny show alongside Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez. Same trip, same island, same week. Then there's the line item nobody could fully explain. More than $23,000 paid to the Coliseo de Puerto Rico, El Choli itself, for venue rental in two payments dated June 24th and August 25th. Dates that bracket the residency. So did her campaign rent the arena where she partied? Here's the honest answer. Nobody has confirmed what those rentals were for. Her campaign manager said she regularly travels to Puerto Rico to support local causes and host events that require staff and security, and that she's proud of her investment in grassroots organizing. Fine, maybe every dollar was an event. But the filings also showed $10,743.13 on catering and meals, high-end San Juan restaurants like Cocina Abierta and Verde Mesa. And remember, filings only show you what was spent. There's a different document from a different building in Washington that shows what happened when someone actually asked her to pay up. We'll get there. Because at this point, you'd assume the story ends the way these stories usually end. The backlash hits, the spending quietly stops, everyone moves on. That is not what happened. Because in early February 2026, the year-end filings came out, the final reports before the midterms, and reporters went straight back to the same line items. The Hotel Palacio Provincial, the adults-only colonial hotel at the center of a national hypocrisy story just weeks earlier. And there it was again, close to $4,000 in new spending at the very same hotel after the backlash. Not a different hotel, not a budget option, the same one. And when you zoom out across all of 2025, the full picture gets worse. Roughly $53,500 of campaign money spent on luxury and so-called boutique hotels, 4- and 5-star properties, over a single year. The dining tells the same story. A New York City sushi restaurant with a $150 14-course tasting menu. A seafood restaurant on the Las Vegas Strip. A San Juan spot where cocktails clear $20. Verde Mesa, where an espresso martini runs $24. December alone showed another $10,743.13 in Puerto Rico catering and meals. And here's a detail that made even neutral observers wince. Several of the luxury hotels weren't in some far-flung swing state. They were in New York City, a short ride from her own district in the Bronx and Queens. Now, the first time this broke, her campaign had a defense ready. Grassroots organizing, events, staff, security. So what was the explanation this time? That's the strange part. When reporters asked whether she felt she needed to explain the 2025 hotel spending, her representatives didn't respond. The campaign that had an answer in December went silent in February. No statement, no accounting, nothing. And look, silence is not an admission, but it's a choice. And it's a choice that fits a pattern one government panel had already put on paper, in black and white, months before any of this hotel spending ever made a headline. We'll open that document soon. But first, you need to understand why this stings the way it does. Because the question isn't really where the money went. The question is where it came from. And the answer to that is the part of this story that should genuinely bother you, no matter which party you vote for. In the first 3 months of 2025, AOC raised $9.55 million, her best quarter ever. By summer, she'd pulled in nearly $15 million from 736,000 individual contributions. And her campaign was very proud to tell you exactly who gave it. No lobbyist money, no corporate PACs. Her campaign manager put it in writing. Their top donor professions are teachers and nurses. 64% were first-time contributors. People who had never given to a politician in their lives moved to open their wallets while she toured the country with Bernie Sanders on the Fighting Oligarchy tour, telling crowds that billionaires were rigging the system against them. And the number her own campaign celebrated loudest? The average donation, $21. So now do the math with me. That single September payment to the adults-only hotel, $9,440.79? At $21 a donor, that's roughly 450 donations. 450 teachers and nurses chipping in what they could to cover one hotel bill. The $53,500 in luxury hotels across 2025? That's more than 2,500 of those donations. A nurse finishes a 12-hour shift, sees a video about fighting the oligarchy, gives 21 bucks, and that money's purchasing power ends up at a $150 tasting menu. Now, is any of this illegal? Let's be precise, because this matters. No, not on its face. Campaign funds can legally pay for travel, lodging, and events if they serve a genuine campaign purpose, and no one has charged her with anything. Her campaign insists this was all organizing, but that's exactly what makes the next part of this story so important. Because legality and integrity are two different tests, and there has been exactly one time. One, when an official body in Washington formally examined whether Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's conduct around money and luxury met the standards she's held to. The verdict didn't come from Fox News. It didn't come from a Republican strategist or a conservative watchdog's press release. It came from a panel that included 5 members of her own party. And what they put their names to is the part of this story nobody on her side wants to talk about. On July 25, 2025, months before a single hotel receipt made the news, the House Ethics Committee released a 26-page report. Understand what this committee is. 10 members, 5 Democrats, and 5 Republicans, evenly split by design, which means nothing comes out of it without members of her own party signing on. The subject? The most famous night of her career, the 2021 Met Gala, and the white gown with "Tax the Rich" painted on the back. The bipartisan committee's finding, in its own words, she impermissibly accepted gifts, that her conduct was inconsistent with House rules, laws, and other standards of conduct. The specifics? She paid just shy of $1,000 for the outfit she wore that night. The committee determined its fair market value was more than $3,700. She also accepted free gala admission for her partner, something House gift rules at the time didn't allow. The committee directed her to pay an additional $2,733.28 out of her own pocket, plus $250 to cover her partner's meal. Now, fairness demands we say this clearly. The committee found her violations were not knowing and willful. They credited her with good faith steps, like consulting lawyers and renting apparel other celebrities get for free, and she accepted the ruling and agreed to pay. All true, but step back and look at what you're now holding. A movement built on tax the rich, wearing underpaid luxury to the most exclusive party in America. A war on oligarchy, funded $21 at a time, spent at adults only colonial hotels and Vegas strip restaurants. A lecture on gentrification, delivered days before dancing in a suite at the island's hottest arena. 3 different years, 3 different settings, one identical gap between the brand and the receipts, and they knew. The committee report proves the questions about her relationship with luxury were formally on the record before the Puerto Rico spending even happened. And the spending continued anyway, even after the December backlash, which brings us back to where we started. Because buried on one page of that 26-page report is the sentence I told you about in the first minute of this video. And it's worse than anything in the filings. Here it is. The committee didn't just find that she underpaid. It found that her payments to vendors were significantly delayed, and that in several cases they did not happen at all until after the Office of Congressional Conduct opened its investigation. Read that again. The hairstylists, the designer, the people who actually worked that night. Some waited months. And some of those bills, according to a bipartisan panel of Congress, only got paid once investigators started asking questions. That's the line that reframes everything you just watched, because it means the pattern isn't simply politician enjoys nice things. The pattern is this: the receipts only match the rhetoric when someone checks. The Met Gala bills got settled when the ethics committee looked. The Puerto Rico spending got a grassroots organizing explanation when reporters looked. And when reporters looked again in February, silence. So let's name what we found today. Block by block, $50,000 in Puerto Rico while condemning gentrification on the same trip. 4,000 more at the same hotel after getting caught. All of it funded by teachers and nurses at $21 a pop. And a bipartisan committee, half Democrats, formally finding her conduct inconsistent with House rules and the law. You now know more about these filings than most people watching cable news tonight. And you got it with the receipts, the dates, and her side's defense included. So here's the verdict. You cannot run a movement on $21 donations and spend it like a 4-star travel influencer. The oligarchy she's fighting picked up a very familiar accent. I want to hear from you in the comments. What was the moment in this video where it clicked for you? More breakdowns like this are on the way, so hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one. And the next time you see that footage of a congresswoman dancing in a luxury suite, remember who paid $21 at a time to keep the lights on. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop reading the receipts.